Hi all, Rick here with a video looking at the Orbs of Bajor, and well, they're even stranger than the mystic rocks that their faith describes them as. In the shows we learn that there are 9 orbs in existence that are known by the Bajoran faith. However, the 10th is uncovered during the events of the show, the Orb of the Emissary. While some of these are named, not all are, and as such, Beta Canon has filled in the names of the rest with a couple of conflicting results. Later stories set beyond the shows have even introduced other orbs, and on top of this, word from behind the scenes suggests that more orbs may have been sent beyond the Gamma Quadrant end of the wormhole, just as they had been with the Alpha end. It's likely that so many orbs ended up around the Bajor system because of the Alpha Quadrant end of the wormhole, which opens into the Denorius belt of the Bajoran solar system, and there are plenty more gravity wells for the orbs to be captured in, from the asteroids of the belts immediately near the mouth of the Celestial Temple to the planet Bajor itself. While the Gamma Quadrant end terminates in a region of space outside of any planetary system, although the nearest is Idran at 4.7 light-years away. The orbs were created by the prophets of the Celestial Temple as ways to extend their reach beyond their wormhole and learn of space beyond it, perhaps a form of probe in their own way. Constructed from some crystalline rock, shaped like an hourglass, the orbs emit a light and distinct energy signature. In addition to this, they seem to absorb energy and act as gateways into the realm of the prophets. However, analysis of them is incredibly difficult, with some speculation that what we see is only around 5% of their actual existence, like the tip of an iceberg, with the rest sunk out of sight of our reality. Gazing into one, or sometimes even being in proximity to it, can have a myriad of effects, but most often in the form of visions. Sometimes these visions place the person in direct communion with the prophets, but most of the time they are cryptic hallucinations based on self-reflection. Because of this, cases were formed to contain them, keeping their emissions and effects dampened unless opened. As an aside, I wonder if they are in fact forged from the time crystals as seen in the Temple of Boreth. Now, I'm not saying they were forged at Boreth, merely that such a temporally charged crystal, something that does not obey the laws of time and can grant esoteric visions, seems like exactly the sort of raw material the prophets could use to forge their devices. Each orb encountered has these similar traits, but some list slightly more towards certain experiences or actions. This has led the Vedics and scientists who studied them to allocate them distinct names. Thousands of years ago, the orbs emerged from the wormhole and many were captured in the Bajor system. It seems that the Bajoran faith in the prophets predates their arrival, however, as they were readily identified as Tears of the Prophets and treated as relics of their religion. Originally, 7 were found in quick succession, as documented in their texts, when the prophets cried, with a further 2 more discovered over the millennia. These orbs are the Orbs of Prophecy and Change, which was the most potent in providing visions of the future and past events that would influence the future. The Orb of Contemplation encouraged deeper self-reflection and visions of personal truths. The Orb of Souls was the least understood, but seemed to allow one to gaze into alternate realities of one's own existence. The Orb of Memory seemed to allow for flashbacks pretty much as events unfolded, with little alteration or mysticism. The Orb of Unity seems to fabricate events and scenarios, but with a point and deeper truth to be gleaned from the experience. The Orb of Time can be used to actually facilitate time travel or view past events of others. The Orb of Wisdom was the most invasive of them, however, as it could literally change a person's mind by enlightening them, often simply with benevolent wisdom. The Orb of Destiny and the Orb of Truth are unclear exactly what they do, but I assume Destiny shows a future path, while the Orb of Truth may show truthful answers. During the Cardassian occupation of Bajor, the Bajoran people attempted to hide the orbs from the Cardassians. However, only one managed to remain hidden, the Orb of Prophecy and Change. It was stowed away in a hidden cave under a holographic entrance in the Temple of Ashala. The rest, however, were stolen and taken back to Cardassian territory. When the occupation ended in 2369, Bajor demanded that they be returned, and many were, eventually. Some, however, were lost, like the Orb of Memory, where the Cardassian transport that carried it was damaged and it was only recovered in 2376. The Orbs of Wisdom and Contemplation were returned in 2371, and the Orb of Time in 2373, and so on. The Orb of Unity was recovered from an Obsidian Order facility, and this, along with Souls, Truth and Destiny, were returned in 2376. One of the officers in charge of accounting and recovering them post-occupation was Shax. Alongside these 9, however, a 10th was uncovered by Benjamin Sisko, the Orb of the Emissary, which supposedly contained a truth to be revealed only to the prophesized emissary. This was found on the planet Tyree and was connected to the prophet that possessed Sarah Sisko, leading to the birth of the emissary. Considering the prophets exist beyond time, it's probable that they learned of the flow of time and the concept of children from Sisko in 2369, then set in motion the very events that created their emissary, including the conception of Sisko using this orb back in the 2330s. This would also explain why the orb was able to act as a failsafe and restore the wormhole after it had been collapsed by the Par-Wraiths. It was a contingency paradox plan to prevent the wormhole being closed forever by their enemies. There are a bunch of other orbs listed in other media, however, some concurrently with the existing 9, like the Orbs of Restitution, Realms, Thought and Mystery. For the sake of keeping things smoothed out, this might be alternate names for some of the others, like the Orb of Prophecy and Change bearing 2 titles. Additionally, in Star Trek Online, the Orb of Possibilities was brought to light in 2409 and seemed to serve a similar role as the Orb of Souls, in that it facilitated alternate universe stuff. So I'll assume it's the same thing. Then, there was a new one discovered in 2410, the Orb of Peace, which was eventually discovered on the prison moon of the Ennis and Null Ennis by Kai Opaka after she managed to bring the 2 warring factions of immortals to peace. She saw this as a sign that she had fulfilled her destiny and was the first confirmed orb found in the Gamma Quadrant. In the comic series Godshock, the Orbs of Destruction and Creation were found, but again attributed as 2 of the original 9. The Destruction Orb was used as a part of a superweapon created by Emperor Kahless and used to slay godlike beings, while the Orb of Creation was recovered from a Cardassian splinter cult by Sisko in 2378 and used to cancel out the Orb of Destruction's effects. As you would expect, one seems capable of destroying life, while the other can encourage it. However, these effects seem to be the most asynchronous acts for orbs. In any case, an orb can seemingly be overridden by the prophets and their main function is suspended in favour of direct communication to them. Ultimately, the orbs are still mysterious for several reasons. They seem to be pretty hard to scan, giving off strange readings, and in addition, the Bajoran protective attitude towards them often results in the prevention of extensive studies, as they don't want to risk damaging them. Whether or not they were sent with the purpose of communing with others, or as an extension of the Prophet's reach to probe and explore on their own, is unknown. But they have formed an intrinsic bond with the people of Bajor, and I love the idea that there may still be others out there across the galaxy for different purposes. There are tales too of the Orlean way of Cardassia, their ancient religion, stamped out by the time of DS9, being revived by exposure to the orbs and their experiences, despite the Bajoran faith being a completely different religion. Likewise, no matter how scientifically minded or pragmatic the person viewing, an orb experience can manifest, and often will trigger. It seems that the most prominent factor in viewing an orb is your own expectations and mental state going in, regardless of religious affiliation and methodology. Until the next video, thanks for watching. I've been Rick, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.